So welcome viewers, this is the second part of this session on scholarly journals, the changing landscape. You would recall that in the first part we had looked at the evolution of journals across formats from print to electronic and from electronic to online, and how during the last century the increasing or escalating cost of journals made them almost inaccessible to institutions, and how libraries, through the formation of library networks, resource sharing and consortium, try to offset some of the problems of escalating cost. But then, and we also discussed that although journals became online and it was widely believed that the cost of journals might come down, that really didn't happen. So increasing cost of journals, the escalating cost of journals was taken note by the academia, and the academia was gravely concerned about the high cost of journals which were making them inaccessible. The academia discussed about the various alternatives, of to the scholarly journals as we had known for close to 300 years. And one of the alternatives that was being talked about for quite some time, in fact for the even the last couple of decades of the last century, the idea of making the journals open access, so that scholarship is accessible to anyone and everyone, and the cost of the journals would not be a deterrent. So the open access journals came into being, and the philosophy behind the open access journals was same as that of the open access, where all information, all scholarly information would be available openly to the researchers, the scientists and the academia, and journals, the journal information should be available in the open access domain. So the open access journals towards the early years of this century began to get popular, and we had different flavors or different types of open access journals, such as the gold open access journal, wherein the authors would have to pay a fee at the time of publishing a paper to the publisher. So this fee was also called the article processing charges, or the APC, and the gold open access, anyone wanting to publish in a gold open access journals would pay a prescribed fee for publishing the article. But the journal, being in open access, was accessible to everyone. It was available in open access on the internet, and anyone from anywhere could access the journal. Next type of open access journal is the platinum open access journal. Now, platinum open access journal does not involve any kind of payment. Neither the authors need to pay for publishing, nor the users need to pay a subscription fee or licensing fee to access the journals. So it was completely free or open. But then, of course, there has to be a cost involved, and somebody has to absorb this cost. So typically, the cost of publishing was absorbed by institutions, and for example, the NISCARE journals, the National Institute of Science Communication and Information Resources, publishes about 18 primary journals, and these journals are an example of platinum open access, where neither the author needs to pay any article processing charges for publishing their articles, and at the same time the users, the scientists, need not pay for accessing the journals that are available online on the internet. Some of the publishers, they came up with this idea of the hybrid journals, where some of the articles in the journal would be in open access, and some articles would be behind the paywall. So in a sense, one could pay an article processing fee to make a particular article available online, so that article is available online. But because the complete journal is not available online, an institution would have to subscribe to the journal, so that those articles that are behind paywalls are also accessible. So this model, the hybrid journal, has been under some criticism because the publishers double dip into the institutional or library budget for charging the authors who are publishing papers in the journal in open access, and also at the same time the institutional library has to subscribe to the journal because all the articles are not available in open access. Another type of open access is the delayed open access journals, where the journal is made open access after a certain period of time. In other words, the journal is not available uh, in open access immediately, like the platinum open access or the gold open access journals, where the articles are available in the open access immediately on publication. In the delayed open access journal, there usually is an embargo period, anywhere from 6 months to an year, during which time the journal is not available in the open access domain, and it is after the embargo period that the journal becomes available in open access domain. An example of a delayed open access journal would be the PNAS, the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which is known to have an embargo period of 6 months, and after 6 months the journal becomes open access. So if one wants to access the journal immediately on publication, one would have to pay the subscription fee or the licensing charges. So open access journals became quite popular, uh, and continues to get popular. But the flip side of open access has been the emergence of what we call the questionable journals. It is also called the predatory journals, and these journals have gone on to become a menace, especially in India. So these are journals, the predatory journals or the questionable journals are those journals which predate on authors, and or rather they prey on authors by way of collecting article processing charges for publishing journals of questionable quality. Many times such journals do not have a proper editorial board, and many a time do not even carry out peer review. So such open access journals, the predatory open access journals or the predatory journals, have mushroomed in large numbers in many parts of the world, and of course in India too. So this has been uh, probably one of the downsides of open access, as many believe. Open access and the advancement in information and communication technologies provided many opportunities to revisit the publication of journals. By and large, we know that journals are serials which have a specified interval, have the ISSN, and have the volume number, issue number, page nation, year, and so on and so forth, and and also have a certain number of articles published in each issue, anywhere from 6 to say 20 articles published in a typical issue of a journal, be it quarterly journal or a monthly journal or a bi-monthly journal. So this is how we had known journals till the arrival of the open access journal, or specifically I would say the gold open access journal called the PLOS One. So the Public Library of Science launched the PLOS One, a gold open access journal, which can be considered as a mega journal. So mega journal is a journal that publishes phenomenal number of articles during a year. So the example of the example that I was mentioning, PLOS One publishes something anywhere like 22,000 to 25,000 articles in a year, and there are other mega journals that came into being, such as the scientific reports. So this was something innovative, I would say, in the journal publishing industry, the publication of mega journals. And yeah, the PLOS One was one of the earliest mega journal that came into being. Of course, there are quite a few, and the numbers would have grown. Uh, the as we can see here, the indicative list here, the ACS Open and several other journals, including one from that of the commercial publisher Elsevier. The other type of journal that came into being was the data journal. The data journals are those journals that publish data. We have known that research journals publish research articles, and these research articles are based on data. And because of the print nature of the journal, which has limitations, and also the nature of data, large data sets in analog form or print form, which are not amenable and can make the journals very bulky. So the data always remained with the author, or was not available to the readers of the journal, and it was just the analysis of the data and the discussions and results that that were published in journals. And it was also a time when the research data management became popular, and it was accepted that the research data is as important as a research paper, and the research data should be made available uh, in the open for many reasons, for so that the same data set can be used by other researchers, and also one can try and replicate the same the same process or the same method based on the same set of data for verification purposes, or other such things. So data journals also came into being during the last 15 or so years, and as we can see, scientific data is an example of such a journal. And we also have the geoscience data journal that publishes primary data rather than research articles as we know them. Now, video journals is another type of journal that came into being in the last again the last 10 years, probably in 2007 or 6 or 7, around that time. And video journals, as the name indicates, are those journals which have videos instead of text. So video journals, when it was launched, the Journal of Visual Experiments, the first video journal, when it came into being, it was felt that or Joe, as we can see, when it came into being, it was felt that the journal may not really take off, because we had known journals in its traditional form. But then the journal went on to be successful, and not only successful, but we could also see the commercial publishers, many other commercial publishers, beginning to publish the visual journals or the video journal. And in fact, even the traditional journals, or the journals, the conventional journals, adding videos as supplementary material to their the journal articles. So the videos as an important component in research communication through journals is also a development that has happened in the last 15 years or so. As we can see here, Elsevier launches the first video journal in gastrointestinal endoscopy. After the initial skepticism of such a journal, we can see that there has been some kind of a acceptance of this form of journal too. Then we have around, I think, 2014 or 15, 14 perhaps, a new type of journal was introduced, and this journal was called the Overlay Journal. And in fact, when it was launched, Nature, the journal Nature, they published a news item about this overlay journal, and as you can see, the overlay journal was kind of I would not say defined, but explained as a journal that publishes no papers. So this was a kind of interesting concept where the journal does not ask authors to submit papers to the journal, but the journal picks up the articles that have been deposited in preprint servers, specifically archives here. So a number of papers are deposited, as all of us know, in these preprint servers, and what the journal does is kind of identify articles and link those articles in the journal, or in a sense the overlay journal overlays on the content or articles that are that have been deposited in repositories. This was again a very interesting kind of development, and the first journal, as we can see here, the discrete analysis is the first overlay journal that came into being. Yeah, as we can see, there's some more information on the journal, which anyone can easily look at from internet. So we, you know, over a period of time we would know, because it's early days yet, and over a period of time we would know how popular uh, these types of journal, the overlay type of journal gets, whether there are going to be more journals, overlay journals in other journals, like we know the bioarchives has come into being now. So would there be a overlay journal in the area of say biology? So this is something that we would come to know in time. Very recent type of journal is the mirror journals. Now mirror journals are again an interesting type of journal, in that there are two versions of the same journal. So this is again to give options to the researchers and scientists whether they would prefer to publish in a paywalled journal, or a open access version of the same journal. So there would be two versions of the same journal, and the editorial board, peer review, and the format type, it would all be identical for the mirror journals. So the two mirror journals, maybe the title would have a little extension, and the two journals would have different ISSNs, of course the International Standard Serial Number, so both of them would be uniquely identified. But then the other processes, the journal editorial process, the peer review process, and all that would remain the same, and the authors now would have an option whether to publish in the paid version of the same journal or the open access version of the same journal. So this is a very recent development, and see here the example of a mirror journal called the Water Research X. So Water Research is a well established paywall journal where one has to license the journal to access, belonging to the publisher Elsevier, and the Water Research X is a mirror journal of Water Research, and this is now available in Water Research X is available in open access. So two versions of the same journal. So this is a kind of an interesting model, and again time will tell whether how these journals perform, because there are some some areas which we need to think of, such as what would be the impact factor of both the versions of the journal. Are they going to be, obviously they can't be the same, so will one version of the journal do better than the other version of the journal, or will they have similar impact factors? How are indexing databases going to look at handle such journals? So these are some of the issues that would be looked at over a period of time, but a very recent type of journal. Of course, there are other platforms as well to publish research papers. We know the preprint servers like archives, and we also mentioned rather about the bioarchives and more such preprint repositories are becoming common in other disciplines as well. As we can see in the last 15 years, we have the different types of journals have come into being for different reasons. One is, of course, the advantage or the flexibility or the facility that the technology offers, and also, like the open access, which was the open access journals, which are kind of which came into being to look to overcome the challenge posed by the high prices of escalating cost of commercial journals. So probably we would see in the coming years many more new types of journals, and surely there is a churning happening out there. Yeah, okay, this is again the faculty of 1000 is another platform where which looks at this idea of open science, making science completely transparent, and immediate publishing of journal articles without the research papers, rather not journal articles, the research papers, without even having to wait for the peer review. So it is like publish first and review later kind of model, so that the research information or the research paper is immediately accessible to researchers all over the world, rather than the delays that one encounters in the peer review and publishing process. So as I was saying, there is a churning that is happening out there in the journal publishing space, and time would tell what would be the future of the scholarly journal, because there are discussions that the journals as we have known them for the last 350 years might actually cease to exist in several years to come, and there would be new ways and means of scholarly communication. So thank you.